So now we're going to hear from Randy about the Arcata Fire District, and I've asked him to help us understand, the pros and cons of this particular this measure, because I know there was a measure a while back that didn't pass, and I think sometimes people don't always know the facts or know what things are going to happen, and so this is an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about was it Measure F, and be able to ask some questions. And if people want more information after this presentation, we can certainly get it for you. So Randy, I'm going to turn it over to you. Whoops, no, you don't get that. Do you have a slideshow that you want to share, Randy, or are you going to just talk?
I was going to try to keep it simple. I do have some slides if there are questions that require details, but for the most part, I don't want to have any technical glitches. So, but we can try it. I have some slides if it's needed. Okay,
well, go ahead then. We'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. First of all, I have to say, I'd be really interested to see the club's cardboard cutout collection to see what you come up with. So that would tell a lot about our club, what kind of cardboard cutouts we have. I don't have any, just for the record. So thanks for having me here. Yes, this is kind of a discussion on Measure F, letting people know what it is, answering questions. That's my job. Our club, the Rotary Club of Arcata Sunrise, has a big connection to this. Our spring fundraiser was started for the firehouse building project, and we worked with the fire district and the volunteers for about 10 years, I believe. Raised about $300,000, and that went towards the major remodel of the downtown fire station in Arcata. So our club had a big part of that. It's really a great story about how the volunteers, the Arcata Volunteer Fire Association, is like a booster club. They do a huge savings for the taxpayers. They basically are a 501c3 and also a C4. They have a holdings, and they basically rent that building out to the fire district. So and the taxpayers have saved a ton of money because of them. So we can talk more about that later if there is time. So April 2017, I believe, I was sitting having breakfast, minding my own business in the Plaza View room back in the good old days, having at a Rotary meeting, and in came the fire chief, and he was doing a report on the fire district, and he was looking for a board member because they had someone leave. Now, the fire district is set up into 5 divisions because, so you represent the area that you live. And they were looking for somebody that lived in the North Arcata area. And the fire chief knew where I lived because when he was a kid, he used to feed our animals when we went on vacation. So he kind of pointed at me and he goes, "You." Well, okay, so history, I ended up on the board of the Arcata Fire District, and it's become my Rotary Super Committee. And lately, it's become a part-time job because there's a lot to do about letting people know what Measure F is. So people are asking, why Measure F now? Well, mainly the fire district has not had any tax increases for 14 years. So, we've been trying to operate on a shoestring, and it's, but the cost of doing business, paying the bills for 3 fire stations, trained firefighters 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year is, we just hit the wall. And the last couple of years, the district has burned through reserves and limped through budget shortfalls with, we've been sending, because as California's been burning, communities have been wiped out. We've wanted to do our part. We've sent a fire engine to other communities. And because, you really feel that, because when we have disasters up here, like the flood of '64, the rest of the state came up and helped rescue us. So it's really kind of something that you really want to do if you can. So we have, in last years, sent a fire engine out to some of these devastation scenes in other communities. But along with that does come some reimbursement from the state and the federal government. So, so we've been using some of that to get by. But we really can't kick the can down the road any longer. The district is now down 8 firefighter positions, and it's just not enough to staff 3 fire stations. So we don't have anybody that we could. There's just no way we can even go into stress mode anymore to send a fire engine to these burning communities in our neighboring counties, because we can't even cover our own. So what is Arcata Fire? It's 5 communities serving 37,000 people. So it's called Arcata Fire, but it's been, and that's a whole other subject. Why is it called Arcata Fire? And that's one of the big confusions that people have. And it goes back into the 1800s. So that's a discussion that we can certainly have down the road. It's a sacred thing for a lot of people. So it's not just going to be an easy thing about changing the name Arcata Fire, but basically Arcata Fire Protection District covers Arcata, McKinleyville, Manila, Bayside, Jacoby Creek. So that's a 62 square mile area serving 37,000 people. So in the March midterm election, that was Measure R, that's what Maggie talked about, is it lost by only 3%. So, the district felt that, we just have to ask the taxpayers, for permission to see if we can, get some more funding, because the fire, we're hitting the wall. It's turned into a crisis, really. And after the midterm Measure R initiative it only lost by 3%. And after that, we learned that people really weren't informed. So many people didn't know anything about Arcata Fire District, and they didn't receive accurate information. We clearly did not do a good job getting accurate information out. And it seems like, especially in the McKinleyville area, it became common for people to ask all of us, like, why doesn't the city of Arcata use sales tax for fire protection? And the point is that the fire district has its own board. It's not connected with the city of Arcata or the county in any way. We have to find our own funding. It's a California special district, and under the California special district laws, our funding is really related to property taxes. If you look at Humboldt Bay Fire in Eureka, that's a Joint Powers Authority, a JPA. So they receive a big chunk of their funding from the city of Eureka, which can do other taxes. So we just can't compare. This is really the only avenue that we can we're able to get funded. So for these measures, they have to pass by 2/3 of the voters. So that's a pretty steep curve. And the fact that Measure R was only 3%, lost by only 3%, and people, and there were so many people that didn't know about it, our board really felt obligated to ask again, because it was, and in this time, there's a group called Friends of Measure F, which is a group of citizens that have swooped in to help. And it's a group of about 25 local citizens who have really helped. So we really weren't politicians. We really weren't, it was just a small group of us that tried to do Measure R. And now we have a group of people that are actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I'm here today by myself because, we didn't bring the fire chief because, we have the fire chief and the battalion chief. Between the two of them, they're running 7 days a week, running the duties. So some of us are trying to carry some of these tasks. So if there's questions that I can't answer, I'll get them to you, but I'll do my best. So the mission of the Friends group is to get accurate information out so that people can choose whether they want to vote yes or no on Measure F. That's really our main goal, is as long as people can understand, they have the information, then vote what you want. But we really did a disservice by not getting enough word out before, when we did the Measure R. So this is what people need to know. This is not a drill, as I like to say. If Measure F fails by, it doesn't get the 2/3 majority, there's going to be dire consequences. And as a board member representing you all, I will at least be able to sleep at night knowing I did everything possible to help my constituents make informed choices when they voted. And I'll tell you, the feeling when Measure R failed made me sick, because we've had to go into rotating station closures. It's very stressful on staff. It's a recipe for bad things to happen. A 62 square mile district. We had 3 fire stations. We only have 2 firefighters on each fire engine in those 3 stations. So that's like 6 firefighters at a time covering our 62 square mile area. And the problem, it worked. Historically, we're industry-wide, there's usually 3 the industry standard is 3 firefighters on each engine. I know in some areas, I spend a lot of time at San Luis Obispo, they have 4, for instance, they have 4 firefighters on each engine. We have 2 because that's all our little district can afford. So that worked because, for the most part, because they were spaced apart. And, so when a fire engine would be going in one direction, there would be another fire engine 5 minutes behind. But when we lost those 8 firefighters because of the budget and job insecurity from the loss of Measure R, everything changed. So now we have it was a big discussion. We had to rotate, basically the public discussion ended up to where the district is trying to rotate. So that everybody in the district gets equal share of what's left of the fire district. Every community has to go dark for 1 week, and we're just rotating it. That's the best we can. And it really is terrible. It's really dangerous for our firefighters, and it's dangerous for our community, because when you dial 911, and for a fire engine, minutes make a difference, whether it's for a medical aid call or for a fire. I mean, lives make a difference, and for a fire, minutes make a difference in damage. So right now we've had a couple major fires. Like we've had a fatality in Arcata earlier this year, where someone died in an apartment fire. We luckily had 2 fire stations staffed nearby. If that happened now, I don't know what we would do. So it really is something that's kept me awake at night. And I didn't really think that this would happen, but that's where we're at. So,
Randy, I think there's a couple questions that people have, and Mike has one, and then I also have one. Go ahead, Mike.
Randy, I have read all of the articles in the Mad River Union. I think I know the need. What I'm most concerned about is my taxes going up, and I think everybody feels the same way. I want it to be fair. I know the need and that this needs to happen, but up here in McKinleyville, there are some very, very large landowners. Are they going to be paying the amount equal to their holdings as I'm going to be paying for my single family home?
No, and that's a good question, and that was just coming up. So no, so it is set up in a chart, and I can mail it to you, or I
have
pop it
slides.
up. What
Randy,
was
are
that?
you looking at slides?
I have one in front of me here.
Because we
But,
can't see it.
no, I'm not. I wasn't gonna.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to tell you that basically for a. I'm just looking at the list here. So for vacant land, you know, you are currently paying $22, and for the benefit assessment and the tax, it basically would be $52 a year. So right now, if the best example is I'll do a single family dwelling without acreage or additional units. So they say like the typical Furtado house in McKinleyville. Owners pay $20 a year from the 1997 special tax. And then they pay $88 from what they call a benefit assessment that took place in 2006. The total is $108 a year. So if Measure F passes, it will become it will be an increase of $98 a year. So it will be a total of $118 a year. So if you go for, I'm just looking at the list here, for a commercial, will be if Measure F passes, it will go up from they will get an additional $546, which will be the for a commercial. So it's based on use. It's based on the type of equipment the district has to maintain, based on training, based on call history, on what the best estimate is to what it takes to respond to emergencies at these. So there's several categories. Mobile home parks are one of the lowest. That would be, they're currently paying $66 a year. It would be a $90 increase for $156 a year. So does that kind of answer?
I think that helps give a good sense of what the change is, because I think everybody always is like, what's going to happen to me? Carol had a question, and Carol, do you want to ask your question?
Well, I think it's kind of related to the previous question. It seemed to me that there was a small group in opposition to Measure R, but perhaps we're spreading some misinformation. And I just wondered, Randy, if you could address what some of those arguments were and if any of those were misguided or misinformed.
Well, yes. I know both of those guys. It's Uri Driscoll and Kent Swatsky. They are the Humboldt Taxpayers League, or they say they are. There's a member of the community, Paul Nicholson, that has been doing some digging, and he can't find out whether they're even an organization. I think he thinks that it's just Kent and Uri calling themselves that. There used to be a Humboldt Taxpayers League. It was an organized group. I've spoken before them, when I worked for the city of Arcata. And these guys, most of what they're saying is absolutely wrong. It's misleading, and you will actually. I just filed a thing with the county elections for the voter pamphlet, saying that. So basically, I have put myself along with 4 other citizens are going to put our names where it counts. Put it in writing that those guys are spreading misinformation and are misleading people. I don't know why they do that. I've had discussions with Kent, and he says, when I talk to him about details, he says, I'm autistic. I can't think that way. And then Uri, none of them have been to any of our meetings. None of them have, we've never seen Uri. He's never asked any questions. So it's a mystery to me why they're fighting this. I don't know. We need someone, a psychologist might be able to answer that because they're getting some kind of a thrill out of the notoriety they're getting, I guess.
So I'm going to have to. It's almost 8, and I know that I appreciate you bringing this issue to us, and I think it's important for people who this is going to impact to do your research, and so that you have the information you need to make a good decision for you. And I do appreciate you sharing this with us, because I know it's very difficult. It's a difficult situation, but you know, California is burning right now, and it's a scary thing. We're fairly fortunate up here, but not from house fires. Not, you know, we're all in a potential situation that we don't want to be in. And
Can I just say one more thing, Maggie?
Sure.
As California burns, the Cal Fire engines are leaving the county. So we're on our own. We don't have any backup. And so that's another reason that scares us, not having a shell of a fire district right now.
Yeah, boy. Well, thank you, Randy. We appreciate you coming and sharing this passion that you have to protect us. And we are going to make a donation to Tri-County Independent Living in your name, and we appreciate it very much.